Hi, good afternoon. This is Shankar Meembat from the Alternative Board in Milton Keynes. Who is your competition? That's a question that I'm often asked, and I assume you are too. Or at least, it's a question I often ask with business owners that I engage with. Now, most business owners get into a business because they are unique. They truly believe what they have, product or a service, is something that's unique that they can offer. And that might lead to often a question, a feeling that there is no competition. And it's a question, it's an answer that I often receive that I don't have a competition. There's no one that does exactly what I do. And so something that I would caution you against here. The definition of a competition is not necessarily someone who exactly provides what would you do. Yes, you could be talking about a competing product or a competing service that you can use for comparison to rank yourself, to get ideas and so on. But that's not necessarily the competition. You're in business in order to get customers and customers who would be willing to pay for your product or service. Every customer, whether they are a business or an individual, has a limited budget, has a limited pool of money that they can spend. The question is, why would they spend it with you rather than something else? And that is how you define competition, by looking at who is competing or what is competing for the money that a customer would pay you. Who would the customer spend that money with rather than with yourself? The other way of looking at it is to say, if your customer doesn't take on your product or your service, how would they fulfill the function that your product or service would otherwise deliver? So those are the two ways of looking at competition. And you might find really odd things out there. And don't be afraid of finding out competition where you thought then there were none. Competition could be, at the end of the day, a dining out. A customer prefers to spend money dining out rather than use your service. Or it could mean that they would prefer to go to sleep rather than use your product, in which case sleep is your competition. Spend some time to understand where your competition is. So remember, there are three ways of identifying your competition. One, the standard way, which is a direct technical substitute for your product or service. But the other two ways are to look at where the money that would be spent on your product would otherwise be spent. And the third is to find out what would the customer do if they do not have access to your product or service. Thank you. This is Shankar Meembat from the Alternative Board, Milton Keynes.